Hey, it's Travis, and welcome to Marketing Unboxed podcast. Today, I sat down with Desai, who is the head of marketing at Captivate Talent. And why that's so interesting is because just 4 months ago, he made a pivot into that role. He's an entrepreneur. He started several businesses and then made a pivot to going in-house. And he explains why he did that, why the time was right. And I think a lot of people are finding the time is right. I think we had the Great Resignation and a lot of people starting companies, but I think we've also will see kind of the opposite of people who have been doing their own thing. Maybe they were freelancing, maybe they had their own company, maybe deciding to go in-house. And so great conversation about why now was the time to do that. For him, we talked about being a solo marketer. He's a solo marketer in his current role, meaning he's a marketing team of one. And a lot of people can relate to that. And so we talked about some of the things that he does to just preserve his time, to be efficient, to automate some things, because when you are a solo marketer, time is your greatest asset and enemy. And I really enjoyed talking with Jay. I learned a lot, and I think you will enjoy it as well. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. Thanks for joining me today, Jay. Excited to talk about your career journey and in your recent career pivot. And so I guess, you've started several companies, right? You're an entrepreneur. Then 4 months ago, you made a career pivot to become the head of marketing at Captivate Talent. Tell us a little bit about why the career pivot. What happened in your world to make that happen?
Yeah, a lot of things going on during that time. One of the things that I kind of recognized was that the job market was definitely heating up, and it's still a hot job market right now. There's a lot of cool roles available and things like that. So that was a motivating factor for me, just kind of seeing what's out there. And I always kept my eye out in the market because, there's so many opportunities and options that are available, whether it's working on your own stuff or working for someone or freelancing. And I want to make sure that I'm choosing the best option for myself. I'd actually worked with Captivate Talent for about 8 months prior to that in a contract freelance role. So I knew them before, I knew the founder. We had done a few marketing projects together and things like that. And I basically said, hey, I think I'm going to look back to take a job. The market's really hot right now. And so with that being said, if that works out, then I might not be able to continue this role. And we talked about it and we ultimately figured out that the best option was to bring me on full time. And so that's kind of how that got started. And I just love trying new things. I'm always trying to be constantly learning. So whether that's working and tinkering on my own projects or working for someone else, I still do some small consulting on the side as well. So that's something I really enjoy. Those were the biggest motivating factors. Hot job market, lots of opportunity there, and an opportunity to learn, an opportunity to work with people that I was already working with that I really enjoyed.
Yeah. And I mean, it is a very hot job market still. And I often wonder, because I left a director of marketing role last August to start my consulting business. And because, for the same reasons, I enjoy doing new things, working on new projects, being exposed to things, constantly learning. Felt like I was getting too comfortable, too stagnant. I didn't like that feeling. It was freaking me out because it's a grind to get things started, to build up consistent projects, and kind of start to work through the peaks and valleys of projects. And I often wonder, man, am I just missing out on this moment where there's lots of opportunities and maybe pick and choose who I work with, what kind of company, what kind of market I work in. So yeah, we'll see. But I definitely understand that motivation. Also from having side projects, side consulting roles, I've done that pretty much in some capacity since 2003, probably, or just having something going on besides my day job, because you just get exposed to so many more things. You get better ideas. You can see how other companies are doing things and bring it back to your role. I was a recruiter. And so that's why Captivate Talent, it's an interesting move that you made, because I have a lot of recruiting experience and now I'm focusing more on operations and revenue. ops and things like that. So kind of an interesting company. But when I was recruiting, I was doing some marketing consulting, and I was seeing things as a marketer that I could bring back to recruiting. And I eventually wrote a book about recruitment marketing, specifically to kind of tie the two together from being able to have a foot on each side. So yeah, I'm a big proponent of having side gigs, side projects while you're doing a day job or anything else, really.
Yeah, it's good to kind of just see what else is going on. And I think, especially for marketing, marketing can be very dry sometimes if you aren't looking at other things, other places. And like you said, it can get a little bit like, feel like you're stuck in the mud if you're just kind of living in your own circle and you're not really looking elsewhere for new ideas, all of those kinds of things. And so I love doing that. I enjoy doing that. And even taking this role, some of the other options that my background's in SaaS. So I've worked at a couple other SaaS companies before, worked on my own like technology kind of like products before and those kinds of things. And so what I'm really excited about the recruitment space and just like the services space as well is there's a lot of stuff that still translates over. One of the things that's really important to me in terms of how we're running marketing and doing marketing is one of the first things I said when I took this job is I'm going to run this just like a SaaS company, like for marketing. So we're not going to do just because we're selling services, we're still selling a product. It's not maybe, your typical digital like product, SaaS product or anything like that. But the same principles apply, the same things apply. And it is B2B. And so we're bringing all of those things over. We're using a lot of different technology to help power the business. We're looking at it in that way. And even though it is like sort of a high touch thing, I think there's also a lot of similarities in how that runs compared to maybe not your self-serve product, but definitely enterprise type of products where you have more kind of a high touch, maybe not only marketing organization, but even customer success, sales, those kinds of things. It's a lot more of a people business over there. So yeah, that's something that drives what we do every day in marketing is, how can we run this? And we're recruiting for SaaS companies. So it's really, how can we run this as a SaaS company? How can we run this as SaaS marketing, even though we're not technically a SaaS?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there's so much crossover there, especially with recruiting firms. I do a lot with recruiting firms with HubSpot and yeah, it's very similar. I think account managers a lot of times will, they'll be filling roles, but they're also, working with the accounts, with the clients very closely. And they're almost like your CS. They're like SDR/CS, right? Like a hybrid. They're trying to get more business and close the roles and do the recruiting, which is almost like an SDR role when they get into the recruitment. Have you looked at the marketing from a recruitment to candidate perspective, or are you focused more on just the business, marketing the business as a whole?
Yeah, we're doing work on both sides. So my overall goal is for us to get in front of more candidates and get in front of more SaaS, like high growth companies. So at the root of that, it's also about recruitment. It's also about bringing candidates in and providing resources more so than anything. Like we want, like from the candidate side for us, it's positioning ourselves as like, hey, if you're looking for a new job or you have a question about how do I move into a leadership role from being an individual contributor, how do I navigate my job search? I have 2 offers. Like, what do I do here? Like, how do I figure out what I need? Like all of those things, like we want to be a resource for that. And so when we think about what we do on the marketing side, it's very much oriented to how we can position ourselves to kind of fill that gap, and not only fill that gap, be the main source for that gap. So candidates aren't going other places. Like we want them to all come to us and talk to us when they have questions about their career, whether they have questions about their job search, all of those things. And it's just as important for us as it is to get in front of more companies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. How can you be remarkable and leverage candidates to kind of be your evangelists, right? And start talking about you and bringing you up in the communities that they're in. I think that's the ultimate kind of digital word of mouth that you want to try to achieve, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. And I think I saw that you're doing some events and you have a lot of ideas. I saw your post from 4 months ago when you announced that you were making the pivot, and it seemed really exciting. You had a lot of ideas and things. 4 months into it, have you been able to dig in and execute on any of those things?
Yeah, we're doing some really exciting stuff. So one of the biggest things we have going on right now, which I'm really excited for, I'm a big no code and tools person. So like, especially as a solo marketer, it's like absolutely necessary to be, high skilled proficient in other tools because you literally have X amount of time a week and I can't duplicate myself out. So I have to rely on tools to kind of fill in those gaps. So one of the things that we're working on right now, which I'm really excited about, is we're building this new job board for ourselves. And a lot of it's run through no code, through automation. And essentially we've been able to create, and it hasn't launched yet, but when it does launch, we've been able to create pages for each individual type of job title that we hire for, each individual industry that we hire for, each individual category that we hire for, sales, marketing, customer success. So really excited about that. And a lot of this that's put together on those pages, like descriptions, headers, H1s, H2s, that's kind of the more technical marketing stuff over there. A lot of that is actually done automatically, kind of just based off of, we use Airtable a lot. So we basically take a lot of that data and then re-slice it up. So using different formulas to kind of combine different fields to kind of basically essentially like automate some of this content process for us that goes on the page. So with that, we're going to be able to produce about, I think we already have like 60, 70 pages that automatically essentially get generated. So huge SEO opportunity for us to rank on all of those things. And it's like, we don't even update it every day. It's like new job gets posted. Those pages automatically update. They get new sort of information. So it gets updated. It says like, hey, like search for X amount of jobs ranging from X amount of salary to X amount of salary, pulls in like related jobs and all of that stuff. And it's all done through no code. So it's a big internal linking opportunity, SEO opportunity. So really excited about that. And a lot of stuff that I'm doing right now is still kind of like content cleanup, essentially is what I call it. Basically digging in through that Google Drive, digging in through ideas that maybe kind of got started, but didn't end up being executed 100%, and digging that out and putting that together. So kind of once we get those, I guess the foundation of the house for the marketing together, then we'll start even experimenting on some other stuff. I mean, some of the things that we're even looking at right now is, and I posted about that recently, we're going to start running our own essentially creator program, like a B2B creator program, influencer program, whatever you want to call it, with creators in our space. We're going to test some things out, paying people and things like that to kind of like partner with them for content. Obviously, if you buy anything online, like consumer products, like for yourself, I don't know, shoes or clothes or anything like that, you're familiar with influencers. Like maybe you see something like 10 times and then you also see someone else walking around with the same thing and you're like, is that cool? Like, should I buy that? Like, we want to do the same thing on this B2B side, on the digital side over here, and basically like partner with creators and say like, hey, like, do you see this company like Captivate Talent, like 10 times on your LinkedIn feed, and people are talking about this is a great place to land jobs, this is a great place to get career advice, this is a great place to get in front of like high growth companies, like all of those things, then you're eventually going to say, why am I not signing up for this? Why am I not doing this? And so that's kind of our play over there, is like, we're going to try things differently. And those are some of the things that are kind of coming up right now. But I have a whole laundry list of ideas that's just sitting in my Notion, ready to kind of fire away as we get through these one by one.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Back to the creating the pages and the SEO piece of that. I think that's huge, and it's a big missed opportunity, I think, for a lot of even just companies in general and staffing firms, especially, who use their applicant tracking system or their career page is hosted somewhere else, and it's not tied to their domain and their website. So they lose all of that SEO capability, and they switch applicant tracking systems, things change. So is that how things were done before you came in? Were they running things through an ATS and job postings through that?
Yeah, so we're still using an ATS to manage everything, but it's about getting that data out there to be able to have more control over how pages. And then the other piece is also kind of having some of our own internal expertise tied back to that, right? So like in a typical ATS, and you're probably familiar with this as well. And for those that aren't familiar, it's kind of just like one of the out of the box solutions. Like you're not going to be able to really configure it to like really like show your industry expertise. And so for us, like part of that is like, we know what related jobs are, right? So if someone's searching for a head of marketing role, they might also be interested in a VP of marketing role. And they might also be interested in like a director of marketing role or some of that stuff. And some of those ATSs allow you to kind of like, they try and use some AI, or they try and maybe match jobs together. But like for us, like we have full control of that. And so we can basically say like, if you're on a head of marketing job, like let's show you some other jobs that are related to that job title based on our own expertise, basically saying like, we know if you're looking for this, you probably might be a good fit for this as well. And not only that, but also being able to do other things. Like I said, we run like a SaaS company. So we also have our own affiliate program, essentially, like where, if you refer someone, you get paid out X amount of dollars. So we run some of that same stuff, and we have more control on maybe putting that, on a page versus like not being able to have the control for that, for not only just SEO opportunity, but also like growth opportunity. Going back to that goal, like we want to be the place that all candidates and all high growth SaaS startups know that this is the place to go to.
Nice. And kind of, you mentioned being a solo marketer. And so are you a marketing team of one right now?
I am. I'm a marketing team of one. I'm the only marketer on the team, but it doesn't always feel like that way. One of the things that I always advocate for, and we do a lot of like team marketing. So whether it's having, we just started this marketing committee. It's basically like 30 minutes a week. I get with some of the recruiters on my team, and we hack on some marketing things, and it's really unlocking their knowledge. So that makes my job a lot easier than trying for me to fill in all the gaps when they're talking to clients and candidates literally every single day. So we do some of that stuff. And we also collect, one of the things that we do is like, I have polls that I'll throw out into our Slack to kind of collect internal content ideas, like things that I know, like I can ask, what are your best 3 tips on salary negotiation, right? For me to figure that out, it's going to take me way longer than to get it from 10 people that are talking to people about that literally every single week. So we kind of do a little bit of marketing by team over there. But yes, I am the only marketer on the team with a marketing title.
Gotcha. Yeah. And I think, I've worked in an agency, and I've a recruiting agency. I've done corporate recruiting, and this recruitment marketing function is, I guess it's kind of fairly new over the last several years on kind of the corporate side. And you have these huge companies, and their recruitment marketing team is a team of one, maybe 2 if they're lucky. So it's very similar. And I think there's a big gap. And I think this is probably just the same gap that exists between sales and marketing, but also in marketing and recruiting, recruiting is a lot like sales. And like you said, they're talking to candidates every day. They're talking to clients every day. They're the ones that have that information, that deep knowledge. And I think so often marketers just kind of work in a silo and try to figure it out, right? Instead of just collaborating, breaking down the silos and getting that communication going.
Yeah, I think, and that's the hard thing. Like, I think for a lot of marketers, and even like any other position, you kind of default to like, I am in this role, like I should be the one doing the work and getting that stuff done. But like when you take a step back and think about it, like, and you think about like obvious marketing, like that's what I like to call it, is obviously you should be talking to people that are talking to these people every single day and figuring out how to break down those silos, and not even like, it doesn't even necessarily have to be like, something that like, you don't want to make it like a burden on anybody as well. Having like very targeted questions, you can kind of send that out to like your internal subject matter expert, or whoever that person is that's talking. And it works outside of recruiting too, right? So if you're like selling like a SaaS product for like cold calling, right? Maybe you do like an enterprise deal and you have big companies that have internal users and stuff like that. So maybe you're talking to a support team and you're saying like, hey, like what are the top 3 things that people keep talking about that they need help with, or something like that? Like, how do we position, like, let's take that knowledge and go out there and position our solution to kind of answer those things, or put together content that can give them the knowledge they need to succeed there. So when it comes down to it, like every single marketer should be talking to some sort of internal subject matter experts on whatever it is that you're selling, whether it's a product or service.
Are you doing any, I guess, kind of the equivalent of sales enablement with the recruiters to give them information to help them close candidates or cross-sell, upsell when they're talking to clients?
Not as much right now. And I'm very much of like, I like to get one thing done at a
Yeah.
time because like I don't want to split my focus to where we're not able to get some of that stuff done. But, as we kind of put together that foundation and lay that foundation for marketing, where we kind of create the engine that can run on its own and kind of lets me take a step back and say like, okay, let's do some more of these like sales enablement functions. Like how do we position our jobs even better, right? How do we do some of that stuff? Like our recruiters are already winning at that, but like you can do a lot of things when you kind of like really fill that top of the funnel, and not necessarily even fill that top of the funnel to like convert someone over, but just the more people that know about you. When you have like a bigger audience, you're able to do a lot of different things for a lot less effort.
And what about recruiters getting out and engaging with people on like LinkedIn and things like that beyond just posting, hey, I've got this job opening, right? Have you done any coaching there, or is your team pretty good at that? Or are there gaps, things that could be better once you come in to see that?
Yeah, we're definitely getting better as a team. I will say that. I think just like even like having those things being pulled internally about like questions kind of gets your brain thinking like, oh, like I can create something on this. Or we have our company LinkedIn page that's up and running and producing content and stuff like that. I'm planning on doing a lot more like high touch coaching and probably Q2, really just going individual by individual, maybe spending like a week with them to working on their content, figuring out how they can kind of put things together, any resources that we can pull out together. I'm a big examples person. So like I have an ever growing list of a bunch of different things, like whether it's like example web pages, or I even have like an example creators list. Like I literally just put together like links to LinkedIn and Twitter profiles for people that are in our space that are great creators that are seeing a lot of engagement and traction. Because I always find like the more examples that you have, the more that you continue to keep writing and working on that stuff, the better you get. It's really compounding growth too, which is even better.
Yeah, absolutely. I think something that's also interesting, and you've probably seen it, I think it's kind of an issue for marketers and recruiters. I'm connected to a lot of recruiters on LinkedIn and Twitter, and that's a lot of my feed. And last summer, I was in a workshop, a copywriting workshop, and at one point, the person leading it said, "Just look at your LinkedIn feed sometime. You'll see a huge missed opportunity where marketers are not talking to their customers or potential clients or customers. They're talking to their peers." And I see recruiters doing that all the time. It's like they're just posting things for other recruiters and kind of creating this kind of echo chamber. And they're really not, they're missing an opportunity to get in front of potential clients or candidates, right? Do you see that, or is that something that you've worked with your team on?
Yeah, that's something we're definitely going to be working on, is how do we better position that content? And it all really goes back to like, what is the value that you can drive? And like really good creators understand that when they're creating content, it cannot always be to just drive their main objective. Like that can be a part of that equation, but you've got to figure out how you can deliver like value, how you can deliver maybe a new perspective, something different, something interesting, something that people can like resonate with and feel like, yeah, this is me. This is the same problems that I'm facing. And it doesn't always have to be selling whatever you're trying to like accomplish all the time. Like you have that goal, but like that's not necessarily got to be like the main motivating factor at times. For us, we're targeting salespeople, we're targeting marketing people, we're targeting customer success people. What those people are talking about and what they're interested in is very different. And so for us, like that's part of our challenge too. Like how can we find those commonalities between those groups and kind of relate it back to not only the job search and recruiting, but also some of those more top of the funnel plays. Like we want to help elevate these people to get promoted. We want them to land leadership roles. We want them to ask for that raise. Like those are things like, even though it's not necessarily going to convert for us today, that goes back to that thing. Like when you feel like you've gotten value from someone, you're going to be way more likely to kind of have that trust and go back to them when you need help.
Exactly. Yeah. And are your recruiters, do they work on a lot of different roles, or are they kind of segmented in terms of what they focus on? Do you have recruiters that just do marketing, some that just do sales, and others that do CS, or are they kind of working on a little bit of everything?
We kind of focus on basically the seniority for the job. So like we'll have teams that will go for more like maybe like junior level jobs, another team for mid-level jobs, another team for like executive level jobs. So that's kind of how we split ours. And so I like the way that we split ours too, because it kind of gives, if you're only looking at one job category, you can kind of get that same kind of tunnel vision where you're not looking like what's innovative. You're not maybe looking at other creators. You're not maybe consuming other things. So that's kind of how we operate. Is we operate more on like experience level and seniority level for those different jobs is how we split them.
Gotcha. Cool. Then to kind of come back to something that you posted today, kind of coming back to being a solo marketer, because it's tough, right? Like you have to create some automation. You've got to create some shortcuts, be efficient, and you've got a lot to do. And for me, as starting my own business, and I'm a team of one, a company of one, I still need to market my business, right? But if I'm working on client projects, lots of calls throughout the day, I need to have that solo marketer mentality and be able to get this stuff done, get content out there, keep the marketing engine moving, because that's where, as a consultant, team of one, the dips from project to project, get 4 projects, they all spin up at the same time, they all kind of end at the same time. But if I can keep that marketing engine moving, that's going to smooth out those dips. And so one of the things you mentioned today on LinkedIn is that your favorite growth play as a solo marketer is product-led content. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, that's one of my favorite plays, product-led content. I mean, it's a super popular strategy. If you're familiar with Ahrefs, they're probably the ones that do it the best. Like almost like 1 million visitors to their site every single month. And most of the stuff that they do is like product-led content. And so what I mean by that is like, this is great for like SaaS companies. So you're basically positioning yourself as the expert on topics by using your product. Like that's the easiest way to put it. For Ahrefs, like what that means is for marketers, like they might be asking like, how do I do SEO, like keyword research, right? So what Ahrefs does in their content is they show you how to do it, and they show you how to do it with their product. So now you think this must be like the option to take, because like I just learned, I invested time, I learned how to do this. And the only way right now I know how to do this is with the product. They've done such a good job of making it really easier, showing that it's really easy with this product compared to other products that I've seen. So I love product-led content. Like it's great. You can use it for any sort of SaaS product. One example I'll give is like for Gong. Product-led content for that looks like, how do I get a better understanding of like what I'm doing on my sales calls, right? And so like through that, it can show someone going on a sales call and like recording the sales call with Gong and how it picks out the keywords and how you can kind of analyze those and look all of those things. So product-led content is awesome. There's just so many things you can do with it. And it's really like goes back to that obvious marketing. It's really easy to do because for most people that work at a product company, you typically have to spend some time training with the product. So you're pretty comfortable with creating that versus getting experience, like expertise in that industry that usually still takes a little bit of ramp up time to get to.
Yeah, exactly. I'm gonna leverage that a lot in the near future, because I think it's, as a HubSpot partner, there's always questions about how do I do this or how do I do that, and it would be a great way to showcase some of those things. And there's so much you can do with something like HubSpot that I think that would be a great thing. And I was also thinking that it probably could be great for just internal documentation as well, and to help onboard with your internal processes and technology that you're using as well.
For sure. I always say like, if you can get like some of that, like especially for product companies, like if you can get some of that internal training, and it's just really easy. And like there's a few products that are available now that like literally like do it for you. Like all you have to do is just click around your product, do the same thing that you do in the training exercise, and it automatically puts together the product guide for you. And you can kind of fill that in, right? You can use those different steps as like headings for that article or topic, and then go more in depth and write that out. And even if you don't want to write it out, there's even like GPT-3 tools that are available now. You can literally take those headings, those steps, write out a quick heading on it. What is this about? And then use like something for GPT-3 to put together the actual paragraphs that kind of like fill that space. And now you've got the headings, the paragraphs, images, like maybe even some videos in there, and probably created some really good, like rich search content in maybe like a day, less than a day, maybe.
Nice. And as an operations consultant, some of the things I help people with is documentation, internal documentation. And so I'm going to look into some of the tools that you mentioned in your LinkedIn post and see if I can leverage those. And what were those two tools that you mentioned?
Scribe and Tango. So they're both product tutorial tools. You can use them for different things, but essentially what it does is like you click around in your product or some other task that you're doing, and it'll capture all the screenshots, put a little like circle box around where you're supposed to click, and it'll also like outline the name of the step for you. So if it says click this button or something like that, it'll write it out for you, and you can even edit it, add a little bit more context and those kinds of things. And it's great. I think you can actually pair it with like Loom. So you could do like a Loom video, and then you do this, so you get the actual product tutorial. Now you also have a video if someone wants to watch video, and then you can kind of pair it with something else, either write out the content yourself or use like GPT-3 to kind of fill in the gaps over there. And boom, you've got like this awesome, rich piece of content that you can also not only publish on your own website, but you can also throw it on YouTube. Maybe you want to turn it into clips and throw it on somewhere else. Maybe you want to take those images and put together some sort of step-by-step thing or something like that. Like there's just so many things you can do with it. And that's why, like, even though I think some marketers give a lot of like hate to tools sometimes and talk a lot about, to be a really good marketer, you need to talk to your customers and do all of those things and do like maybe some of those more qualitative insights and those things, and maybe even some quantitative, like analyzing data and stuff like that. But like, I very much believe, especially if you're a solo marketer, like time is your biggest limiting resource usually, like same probably as budget. And so when it comes to that, like having the right tool set can make an incredible impact on how much you can get done with the time that you have available.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you're creating the content-led or the product-led content, do you have any go-to places that are inspirations for the content that you create? Where you find people asking these questions?
I would say there's a few different places to collect it. If you've got like some sort of like surveying tool like built in your product and you're like things that people need help with, there's going to be some really obvious ones as well. If you're doing like an email marketing tool, how to send, like maybe you do some sort of really like automated, like very email marketing tool, and one of your customer types is like e-commerce companies. So maybe you like do a tutorial like how to create great looking emails for like Shopify users or something like that, right? And you can kind of like walk through your product and put that together. So those ones are some of the more obvious ones. So surveying tool, using obvious ones. I'd also say like any sort of email feedback, customer feedback that you're getting, like whether it's like live chat, emails, those things. If you have any support team or the people that are talking to customers every single day or talking to prospective customers every single day, ask those people, like, what are people asking about? What are people like saying, like, hey, like, do you have this feature? Do you have that feature? Those are the great ones for like product-led content. And you can even take it a step farther than that. Like if you're doing a good job as a business of having good conversations with your customers, wanting to see them succeed and not just like selling them a product to sell them a product, you should be asking. So like for Ahrefs example, right? Like how to do keyword research. That might be an obvious thing for people to look for. And you can obviously create content around that. But maybe the next step of that is like, how do I do keyword research that's actually going to grow my traffic? That's going to be a little bit more different than just like showing like a tutorial. How do you use your product and how do you do this? Like you might take more of a fine approach to really putting that content together. So that's what I would say as well. Like really focus in on like how you can not only just like demonstrate your tool, yes, can do this and kind of enable people to find success there and make their lives easier, but like how do you take it to that next level? We want you to use this to improve your workflow or either save time or save money or whatever that is. But like we also want to take you to the next level as well. And like any things that you can do for that sense, like having product-led content for that is really great, because like another good example is Canva. A lot of people go to Canva to especially if you're like a marketing team one or you have your own business. It's just a really easy way to put together designs and stuff like that. And being able to show that you're like the best solution for that, like any way you can kind of position, is great stuff as well.
Exactly. Yeah. Are you familiar with Christopher Penn?
I am not.
No. So he's kind of more on the analytics side of marketing. My first kind of interaction with him was several years ago when I was more active in the kind of Daily Carnage Facebook group. And I asked a question one time in that community, and an hour or two later, he responds with a link to a video he created. And he just would comb through just listen. And when a question would come up, he'd go kind of make a mini podcast how-to video answering that question, pop it back in the feed and say, hey, I made a video on how to do this. And then he would leverage that for his own content. And he also does that. I see him at conferences all the time, especially now that we're in a hybrid world and most of the conferences have gone online, where he's just hanging out in the comments section, just watching the questions that come up during the presentations and making notes of what's being asked, what seems to be more popular questions, consistent questions. And then he's going back and creating content that he'll share out in his newsletter, on his website, on LinkedIn and Facebook and things like that. So I thought that was an interesting way to just get access to questions pretty easily and quickly. So
very cool. Yeah. If you have your own community, like that's a great place to source questions as well. And there's a lot of new technology that's coming around for even like community monitoring, like Slack group monitoring and stuff like that, where you can have notifications for key questions, which is awesome.
Nice. And does things work in like Facebook groups and within communities? Is it like how do those work?
Yeah, I don't know about Facebook communities. I have to do some research, but I know there is some products available for like Slack communities like that basically like give you notifications, like people mention questions or people mention certain keywords that you kind of put keyword tracking for. It like works in Discord as well and things like that. Using like some of those tools to help enable some of that growth as well. And I think everyone that has a really big community should always invest in a community manager, because there are just so many insights that you can get, and that makes it really easy where you have that workflow. Like, okay, any new posts that come up or any new questions, like we have someone that's looking and is going to flag them and send them over here. And then we have this like workflow of like, how do we turn that into content, or how do we get that answered, or whatever that.
Yeah, that would be very helpful for, I think you and I both are in Rev Genius and I'm in Pavilion, and the Slack in both of those is just kind of insane. And it would be nice to be able to filter out key things like that, to be able to engage and also just see those questions, maybe create some content around it for my audience who's interested in asking the same questions. They're just not in that community. So that would be key.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's going to be a lot of innovation on the community side in the next couple of years. I'm so excited to see it.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Yeah, that's awesome, man. And how can people find you? How can they follow you?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn. That's where I spend most of my time. I have a Twitter account that I need to revive at some point that's been kind of just collecting dust, but definitely find me on LinkedIn. I create content like once every weekday, or at least I try to. Just Jay Desai. And if you're connected with Travis, you can find me as well, because I'm connected with Travis. So just look for me over there.
Awesome. It's been a great conversation. Really appreciate you coming on today. And looking forward to following what you're doing at Captivate Talent more closely. And maybe I'll find some things that I can steal like an artist.
Yeah, please do. That's what it's there for. And yeah, I'm glad we were able to connect, and I'm definitely going to be following along all the stuff that you're working on. And thank you so much for having me on the podcast. It's always fun to talk about these things.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And that wraps up this edition of Marketing Unboxed. Just want to thank you for listening, and thank you for continuing to tune in. If you enjoyed the show, if you enjoy the podcast, please give it a rating, give it a review on Apple. I think you could do the same thing on Spotify. And if it's something you can do on any other platform, please do it. I really appreciate it, and it just helps and get the word out. And until next time, I'm out.